Hey guys, Quiv the Lazy Geek here, and welcome back to another episode of just doing astrophotography in general. So today, for the first time, it's really clear, like really throughout the sky clear. It is slightly smoggy on the horizon, but that's to be expected. And we have one thing to thank for the clear night today. It's a typhoon that's actually approaching and actually on the west side of Japan. It should go above in the Sea of Japan, in between Japan, China, and Japan and Korea. So it will not directly affect us, but there is quite a bit of wind, and that wind has been chasing the clouds away, and that wind has been chasing most of the smog away, which is nice. Of course, that wind will also completely mess up with the imaging itself, but you know, details. So it's always, you know, there's always something. You cannot, there is no free lunch in astrophotography unless you live like in the middle of nowhere and you have your own dome, like it is very possible to do in a country like the United States or in Japan if you don't need to work in Tokyo. So I have two setups that are ready for tonight. So we have the bazooka here, and we have the tiny cute little hobbit here. The bazooka is going to, I've decided, go for the Elephant Trunk Nebula, which is a nebula I've tried to image before. I have done actually with an Edge HD 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. But, you know, I want to try some more with this setup, which is relatively fast at f3.8. Plus, it is the setup that I have just finished rebuilding. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should look at the Starting Astrophotography for Lazy People, the last 4 episodes. I'll be putting a link to a playlist above if you want to have a look to see how I rebuilt everything for this telescope. So on this we have an 8-inch Newtonian with a coma reducer and coma corrector and focal length reducer in here, which brings the focal ratio to f3.8. We have an ASI 1600 mm, so monochrome, cool. We have Astrodon narrowband filters, 3 nanometers, so very small band pass. And we have a ZW EAF focuser, as well as a Skywatcher guide scope and an ASI 178 mm for guiding. If that's completely gibberish to you guys, don't worry about it. Basically, this is the main scope. This is a scope that will track a star for me and let the thing that carries the scope know if it deviates away from target. And we're gonna go for that particular nebula. I've done tons of enhancements to this. First, I've gotten perfect balance, as you may have seen from a previous video, using the power of electricity. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's actually super cool, and you should check that video out. I'm linking to it above. But I have also fixed light leaks on it. This is yet another video about that, but you know, you can look for it. I have done cable management on this. I have adjusted the backlash of the mount. There's tons of stuff that has been done. So today we'll see how well that works in such windy conditions. And you know, I don't know yet. I haven't done it, but spoiler alert, it will not work very well. This is the kind of wind and wind gusts, and I have to protect my mic here so you don't get all that wind noise that I think is going to defeat this particular setup. So which is why I have the Hobbit here on the other side. The Hobbit has a very cute 135mm Canon lens, along with an astromechanics adapter, which will let us actually control the focus motor of the lens. We have a filter, a ZW duo-band filter for the nebula. We have the 533 MC Pro, which is a color camera, which will work very well with the ZW duo-band filter. And then we have a QHY 52L. People love nice to pronounce names in this industry, along with a mini guide scope for the guiding. Again, it's the little scope that will tell the mount here how to correct its path. So this is on a new mount, which I have actually disassembled and tuned and everything. So we'll see how well this mount performs. It is not well balanced, simply because I don't have any, like I would need a smaller weight to balance this. It's either not balanced enough on one side or on the other at this stage. So we'll see how that goes. Both of those mounts have been polar aligned, so they're both pointing to the north celestial pole, meaning their axis of rotation is parallel to the Earth's rotation axis. So the Earth rotates one way, the telescopes rotate the other way, and so from the telescope's point of view, the stars do not move, or at least that's the hope. And it's a beautiful night. Earlier today I was doing some solar imaging. There's Jupiter, there's Saturn back there, and it makes me want to just get out the big Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope and just like visually look at Jupiter and Saturn. But I'm already with this and I'm already with that. Now this one I'm still hesitating whether to go for the Elephant Trunk Nebula, same as the Bazooka, or whether I'll go for the North American Nebula with the Cygnus wall, and that's probably what I'll end up doing. So 2 targets at once, 2 setups. There's a computer on top here to control this one, and I'll be controlling the other one with a laptop that I have here. But otherwise, this is looking good. So let's get into actually setting up the sequences for those 2 telescopes. And wow, still like Jupiter is so beautiful, so bright. So much to do, but I have another problem. In just 1 hour, I have actually a phone conference for work. So I have to actually get my sequences, so my planning for the automation of all of these 2 telescopes basically properly set up before I go working back at my computer and do some quite complicated actually projects over the phone. But anyway, that aside, I'll be using n.i.n.a to control both scopes. So n.i.n.a is a free and open source capture software for astrophotography and automation software. And right now I am connected via remote desktop to the computer that's on the big Bazooka. So I will open up n.i.n.a on that computer. And what we'll do is that we will choose the nebula to image, we'll choose the targets, and we'll do everything that's needed. Now, I've gone into details in previous videos about how to use n.i.n.a, so I will not go into too much detail, except that we're going to connect to the main camera here. We're going to try to cool it to -5 degrees. I'm going to check that the gain, offset, and USB limits are as usual, which they are. We're going to connect to the filter wheel, which contains filters, including nebula-specific filters like those HA, S2, and O3 filters, which we want to use. I'm going to connect to the focuser that will let me bring the stars in focus, and as the temperature shifts throughout the night, I will basically be refocusing, because temperature shifts mean that the Bazooka retracts or contracts or expands a little bit, and that actually has a measurable effect on focus, and we don't want out of focus images, so we'll be refocusing from time to time. And the telescope is the actual mount, this kind of stuff that makes everything tracking, so it's quite important to connect to it as well. And we'll start from there. And the next step for me is I will unpark the mount. It's basically similar to just removing the parking brake on your car. And I will go into what we call the Sky Atlas. And the Sky Atlas, I will search for Elephant Trunk and use the IC denomination. There it is, I believe. We're going to do set for framing assistant that will basically download an image from a NASA database so that we can try to frame the object that we want to image very carefully and very beautifully. And that's the objective. We'll wait for this to be loaded. And here we are. And what I want to get is actually, you see this kind of weird thingy there? I think that's basically the elephant trunk. And I have a window that I can move around to select my framing. And this is what we're going to do. And then the software, along with the mount, will, wow, that wind. We're not going to be successful tonight with such wind, but hey, let's try it. We'll try to basically move the mount to that target, and it will actually analyze the stars around there in a procedure that's called plate solving to recenter the mount very precisely. So let's do that. So we're going to say that we're going to replace this as a sequence target. So that means that this is what we want to image. At the same time, I'm going to launch a piece of software called PhD2, which is a software that will control the secondary telescope. So for this one, that little gray thing. For the Bazooka, it was a little thing on top. I am not going to update quite yet. What I'm going to make sure of is that I have connected to my guide camera. and my telescope, so that the guide camera can look at the stars and determine whether we're moving away from the star. And we can also communicate to the mount itself, so the thing that moves the telescope, to tell it to come back to target, which is what this guiding operation does. Then we're gonna click that arrow button to try and get images. The problem is those images, well, with the light that I have just put on the balcony, they don't work very well. So I will turn off the lights, you will not see me anymore, but we should have a better result. Okay, and now we actually have stars, which is good news, which means we'll be able to guide later on. And what I will do is, back in my n.i.n.a software, I am going to go inside the guider and say we are going to connect to PhD2, so that n.i.n.a can actually communicate with the guiding software and tell it when to start guiding and when to stop guiding, that kind of stuff. Now back to the sequence. We're going to say that at the start of the sequence we want to start guiding, we want to slew to target, we want to center the target, and maybe we'll want to autofocus as well. And at the same time I will say that I will autofocus every 60 minutes, or after the roundness of the stars, the focus of the star has drifted by a fairly large amount. And that will be like what will happen during the sequence. Now I will try to capture mostly a specific narrowband filter called H alpha, and maybe O3. So let's see. I'm going to go to filter and say H alpha. We're going to do an operation called dithering, which is moving the telescope slightly between exposures. This helps reduce the noise in the final picture. And I'm going to expose for 300 seconds on each frame. We're going to see, we're going to try to take 50 frames, which would take around 4 hours and would bring us to 1 a.m., which means that maybe I'm going to take actually 40 H alpha frames, and we're going to add another one where we'll have 30 frames of 300 seconds, this time in oxygen 3. Actually, oxygen 3 probably requires less exposure time, so I'm going to put 180. I am pretty sure that with my setup it's going to work well like that. And I will double check though whether if I take an image from the camera directly, I can actually get an image of stars. So there are some stars, we're not quite in focus. So what I will do is I will slew to my targets. And right now the telescope is moving to get to target. And now let's be optimistic. Let's actually start our sequence to start really imaging with the bazooka. So it will slew to target, it will center the target, it will start the guiding, it will autofocus, it will start the sequence, and it will do everything automatically. There is no intervention needed on my part going forward, which is great. And we are now exposing on the main bazooka. Let's repeat the whole process for the Hobbit. So it's going to be exactly the same. So I'm just going to power through like quickly. So for the Hobbit, I've already connected the camera, the focuser, the telescope. We're going to go into the Sky Atlas, search for the Cygnus Wall, or maybe the Gulf of Mexico, because yes, that exists. So there it is. We're gonna set that as I've set it as the sequence target. We will want to start guiding slew to target, center the target. We will want to autofocus on start. We will want to autofocus after 60 minutes. And we will want to autofocus if the HFR increases by a significant amount. We will be taking exposures of roughly 120 seconds. No, actually maybe 60 seconds. That should work well. And we're going to try to take 350. Here we are. That is our plan for tonight. We will be dithering every 2 frames. Okay, and we do need Well, actually, I might not auto-guide with this. I might try to do some just unguided astrophotography, see if it works. And, you know, it just might. So, for that, wow, it has trouble staying at -5 degrees, the camera I'm seeing. So we're gonna make it a bit happier. We're gonna go to 0 degrees. It's not as good as -5. We'll get more noise on the camera sensor, but that's the way things are. We were saying that we are going to dither every frame, and this time the guider, we'll try it to be in the equipment. We'll put something called direct guider, which is basically a dumb guider that connects to the mount and just sends pulse commands to the mount to move it from time to time without changing anything, and there is nothing to tell the mount whether it has deviated from target. So just like before, we will unpark the mount first, and then if I start the sequence, it should automatically slew to target, center the target, autofocus, and start the exposures. And here we are, the telescope is slewing. If you can see that, maybe the camera is hopelessly out of focus, but we'll see. And once the telescope has slewed, it will go through the whole shebang of exactly what the bazooka did. And everything is done, it has started exposing. We're going to do something else as well. We're going to launch a piece of processing software for astrophotography called PixInsight that many people say is overpriced, but that I personally love, although I did buy it when it was considerably cheaper a few years ago, but I could never do without. And we're going to use a script from the Easy processing suite called Easy Livestack. We'll start using it as soon as we get the first exposure out of that lens, and we'll see whether with this wind, with a 135 millimeter lens, we'll still get some more or less round stars without any guiding. Okay, and the stars don't look too bad on the first exposure. So what we're going to do is in PixInsight, we're going to set Start New Livestack. And we're going to go into the imaging folder, select the first image that we took, say that the image is color, and then we're just going to select a flat master, which I do believe we have. Not yet. Well, I'll take a single flat and it will have to do. And then we are going to say that we are going to start watching the folder, and that should basically give us an automated stacking of the frames as they come in, so we can see the result. And with that, we're going to go inside because everything's ready, and then I'm going to let those telescopes do their work, and I'll be back tomorrow to share the results with you. So see you tomorrow. And as you may see from my bleary face, I just woke up, and because I am so dedicated and not lazy enough, despite my nickname, as many commenters have pointed out, first thing I did is go and check the balcony. And isn't it nice when you wake up to see both imaging rigs there having returned automatically to their home position to park there, and both are waiting for me. Why is this not tightened? Oh man, I'm always forgetting stuff. But as far as I can tell, the Livestack on this one gave a pretty good result. So I'll be sharing that with very little to no processing. I don't even have flat frames or dark frames for this setup yet. And I have dark frames from -5 degrees, but it was too hot. So now I have to take dark frames for 0 degrees. The good news is that apparently unguided, 60 seconds, 135 millimeters, not a problem at all. So that's really good. And so this guider there was never used. I used just a direct guider to the mouse using the n.i.n.a functionality that I actually built. So that's good. And this one, it got shockingly good guiding results despite the huge amount of wind that we had yesterday. So when there was a lot of wind, we were at like maybe 1.70 arc seconds RMS on a resolution of 1 arc second per pixel. So it's not perfect, but it's not that bad. And I'm gonna stack. I didn't do the live stack on this one, so I'm gonna do a quick stack on H alpha and O3, which is what we captured. I have flat frames and dark flats, but I do not have dark frames yet on this one. So again, we'll have like partial calibration, and I'll put the results there in the video so you can see how it looked like. So we'll have a color image of the Cygnus wall, and we should have a bicolor image of the elephant trunk if my O3 collection went well. Otherwise, we'll go with a monochrome image in H alpha. That's pretty much it for this session. I might, depending on the quality of the data, I might do a processing video later on if it's worth doing. But otherwise, you know, that's pretty much it for now. So I hope you enjoyed it. It's finally nice weather here. I'm probably going to replace this by my solar telescope and then try to capture some structures of the sun. But anyway, for the moment, thank you so much for watching. If you're not a subscriber, if you're new to this channel, feel free to go down below, click that subscribe button. Tons of content related to astrophotography and astronomy going up these days. And otherwise, you know, if you like this video, please click on the like button down below. Please leave a comment if you have any suggestion or any remarks or anything you want to tell me. And you know, as always, thank you so much for watching. Whenever you can, don't forget to look up at the stars, and I'll see you next time.